On the spot, at the spot.
The spot, SoDo.
With the big homie Nick, we at the spot.
SoDo.
We at the spot, SoDo.
Spot SoDo.
On the spot, at the spot, SoDo, Seattle.
Man, pull out your blunt, grab your drink, get your notepad. Cause it's a lot of game. Man, we over here on the spot, at the spot, man. You know what I'm saying? Go like, comment, and subscribe, because we got a great show, man. An alumni of the show. Man, we got a man, Mr. Assembly Jessie Wineberry. You know what I mean? Back with us and stuff like that. How you doing, my brother?
It's my honor. It's my honor to be back with the banks. I like hanging around banks.
Man, hey, you and me both. Got Mr. McGlover with us and everything like that, man.
Hey, y'all.
So, you know, man, I want to say Mr. Wineberry came, did a great interview, you know what I'm saying, with Bobby Wagner, man. You know, hope you guys check that out, man. And, you know, it's really giving us some game. You know what I'm saying? He slapped me, man, with that Reginald Lewis. Watch the white guys have all the fun, you know, slap me with it, you know what I mean, and open my eyes. McGlover, don't steal my book, man.
I won't. I'll get one for you. Thank you.
Mr. Wineberry, what's been going on, man, since the initiative was passed?
A whole lot, because once you pass a law, a lot of people who may have not been involved in politics, and this was politics, you know, we've had conversations. I say there's a difference between politics and politricks. We'll get to that later.
Real talk.
But the politricks was going on when we were here before.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so we molded and shaped it into real politics, and so now it's law. And for those of you who don't know, in 1972, August 20th, Governor Daniel Evans signed into law something called Affirmative Action. It basically required the government to train people, hire people, educate people, and contract with people of color, black, brown, red, yellow, and women for the first time in Washington State in history. And I'm told that it was one of the first executive orders to do that in American history. No other states had done it. That was 50 years ago, coming up on August 20th.
Okay.
And so what happened after that, more African-American and other people who had never had a chance before got college educations, got really good jobs, got the ability to start their own business like you have done here and bid on government contracts. The government allocates literally billions of dollars every year, not just to their own programs and services, but to businesses to deliver those programs and services in the name of the government. So a lot of times you may go somewhere and think you're going to, you know, like a government-owned driver's license renewal location. Well, there are individuals who have bid, private businesses who have bid on the opportunity to run that facility, and they're the ones running it, even though the government's name is on it, and they're being paid literally millions, and in some cases billions of dollars to provide those services. When you see the roads being built, freeways being built, bridges being built, everybody thinks, oh, that's the government doing that. The government just manages it, supervises it, but they put bids out for women and minority businesses to compete, win those contracts, and when you see those people out there, you know, working or holding up signs,
It's somebody's company.
it's somebody's company.
They put in a bid.
Yeah, and they put in a bid, they compete, they win, and those contracts are not short term. I mean, how long have we been driving on streets and roads?
Yeah, how long they've been working?
And how long they've been working, right? I mean,
Tacoma, by the Tacoma Dome.
right?
Man, this is the first time I got here.
Exactly. So that's not something to, you know, like sneeze at, you know. And so those opportunities were put on hold in 1998, because what you had is a situation where the people who had been accustomed to being the chosen ones to get those contracts, all of a sudden said, we don't want this anymore. We don't want affirmative action. We don't want other people who haven't had a chance for hundreds of years to get a chance even for a few years.
No, they don't want to
compete. And so they put up something called I-200. I-200. And so I means initiative. And that was put on the ballot. But the one thing that initiative said was we don't want to kill all affirmative action programs. We just want to kill the programs that take a lesser qualified person and elevate them over a more qualified person or business solely based on their race. If the qualifications merit them winning the contract, then we want that to continue. But we don't want people just to be given millions and dollars, and these were mainly white guys who had been accustomed to winning those contracts.
Yeah.
And they're like, and they don't see that when the woman wins it, it's because she's qualified. They say, oh, it's just because she's a woman.
Because she's a woman.
Right. They don't see if a black man wins a contract or a black-owned company wins a contract that they were qualified. They say, oh, they're not as good as us. They just got it because they're black. What they learned, though, was that a lot of those companies that were winning contracts and people that were getting jobs in colleges and universities actually were qualified. So they backed off of, we won't kill all affirmative action programs, just ones that where somebody gets it only because they're a woman or a person of color. And so that passed. Well, that meant because no affirmative action program gives away jobs and college educations and contracts just because you walk in and say you're black, you got to put down some resume. Right. You got to put down some other experiences that you have had that qualify you for that job or the contract. Right. And so affirmative action kept going. Then came Governor Locke's Governor's Directive 9801, which said, no, we are going to discontinue affirmative action as you've known it, and all of that you have grown accustomed to, if you've benefited, now comes to an end. And those of you who didn't want those programs anyway, now you have a better chance. That was not public. That was a memo from the governor to all of his cabinet.
Constituents and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And so people in Olympia. And so that's when the doors began closing. That's when the opportunities began disappearing. And so what our organization, Washington Equity Now Alliance, did is we uncovered that through serious research, where we went deeper than media articles, Seattle Times, Cairo, King, Como, coverage at that time. We said we're going to go for the facts, not the fiction. And that's when we discovered Governor's Directive 9801. Then we kept doing research and found out, wait a minute, all we need is for the current governor to rescind that. And now the doors are back open. So that was the movement that when I was last here, we had taken to Governor Inslee, and he had called a meeting to announce his decision and then didn't show up. Yeah. But what we said after that is we were never going to quit on him. We were never going to stop putting pressure on the governor's office. We were never going to stop mobilizing millions of people in Washington State who were behind us to say to the governor, if you don't want to meet, that's fine, but sign the bill into law. And he did on January 17th, which happened to be Martin Luther King's birthday. He signed Executive Order 2202, you can Google it, don't take my word for it, that basically eliminated that Governor's Directive 9801 that killed affirmative action, now gone into the trash can. And now what unleashes is all of the laws and programs that were in place and giving us opportunity for all those years. So we are now in the phase of making sure they implement that. We've met with the Washington State Attorney General's office. We've met with the Department of Enterprise Services that does all those contracts. We've met with the Secretary of Transportation that does all those highways and bridges and roads contracts, and said, listen, we are here not on a part-time basis. We're here on a full-time permanent basis. And we are going to work with you, monitor you, and yes, if it's appropriate, even go public on you if you're not implementing the new law. And so Washington Equity Now Alliance, when we were here before, we were a campaign, just to get done what our purpose was to get the executive order signed. Since that time, we've evolved. We've filed as a permanent nonprofit organization with the state of Washington. We've elected our board of directors. We've begun meeting with everybody from the members of the Washington State Supreme Court, members of Congress, members of the legislature, all the government powers, to let them know that we are the guardian and watchdog of equity. And it just so happens that we're doing this on what is 50-year celebration of when equity started in this state, and so that's where we are now.
Councilman, if you don't mind, when you say equity, what do you exactly mean? Equity in what? In the state of Washington, as a minority, as a black people, as when you say equity, what do you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, that's a good question, because equity is it's an old word, but it's been used only in the last few years. It used to be equality.
Yeah.
That we were all fighting for equality. And what we've learned over time is that if we're all given the same thing, that when it comes to particularly African Americans, we're still behind. So if we say, well, we all want the same jobs at the same pay, and so let's say that a Caucasian male gets a job and an African American male also gets a job. I mean, not the same job, obviously, but the same job title at the same place.
Yeah.
The white male, historically, is coming to the table with generational wealth that backs him up. So if he's sick, if he loses a job, they don't lose a beat in terms of building their wealth and the ability to own property and to start businesses. But when the typical African American, depending on when he was born, gets that job, that's a beginning.
Yeah.
They're not reaching back on real estate. They're not reaching back on stocks and bonds that's already a foundation of wealth that they're building from. They are the foundation, and they may be in their 20s, they may be in their 30s, and for the first time, yeah, right. And if they lose it, then it's a catastrophe. And so we learn from that. We say, wait a minute, we don't want equality, we want equity. So that if you got two people going after something, we need to make sure that they both are starting from the same place. And so now that African American, let's make sure that they get, for example, reparations, because while the white family has had 3 or 4 generations from 1865 when slavery ended to build their wealth, this black man has not. So now let's make sure that black man gets his or her, black man or black woman gets their equity, which means the repayment of the money that the generations previous to them would have received had they been compensated for the same job like the white who has been compensated all those years.
You know what, Assemblyman Wineberry, I got a question, and it's gonna burn me if I don't get it off. How do we protect affirmative action with migrant workers, Ukrainians, and everybody that's coming in? Because it seems like every time that we get something and we think that, as a people, we get ahead, everybody pushes us out the way of the door. They run in the door, and then when we finally get to that door, it's no more room.
I disagree with that. I agree, but not disagree. I think that us as a people, we open the door for everybody instead of closing it in and getting us. You know what I'm saying?
No, but I'm saying what type of protection? Because we don't open the door. We might fight to get the door, but everybody comes and pushes us. Well, this is what we got. Even with this initiative of affirmative action, nothing against, but it is a fucking free for all. Excuse my friend. It is a free for all. It's going to be a free for all for Asians.
That's
it's going to be
what
a free for all. It's going to be a free for all for gays.
You talking about something for us?
Yeah, because every time that we get something for us, I'll say foundational blacks. Everybody takes advantage, except us. You know what I mean? Let's be real. I mean, I was to go to HBCU. It's harder for you to get in. But if I turn around and say, oh yeah, well, my grandmother is half Mexican and half black, I'm in the door. So it's like, how do we protect what we got? Because let's be real, if it goes around, affirmative action is in fucking Seattle. I'm from California. I know them assholes in California. Well, I've watched, and again, nothing. I've watched a migrant worker pretty much push Californians out of California. I've watched the construction jobs. I've watched service jobs. I watched anything automotive, anything that directly that shit that, excuse me again, that black people did. We're not in that market no more. We get underbid. We get undersold, and it's like, how do you compete? I'm being truthful. I can't because
I can't wait to answer. I'm
okay,
just waiting until you guys finish.
Go ahead, Mr. Wineberry.
We've been waiting for you.
The number one answer is to do with this, like this man did, and that is, once you hear and learn that the door is open, don't wait to run in. Be the first in. You almost hit the analogy. You said get in the door and then shut and lock it. Obviously, we don't have that power because the affirmative action that we have is government funded, so that's the taxpayers, so that's everybody. So we can't lock it, but nothing prevents us from running in. The reason I do interviews on shows like this, I mean, I do the mainstream media interviews as well. But the reason I take extra time to get to shows like this is because the people who we were fighting for need to be the first in line.
Exactly.
But I'm going to tell you something. This may be come across as a criticism, but we've rebounded from it. Let's set affirmative action aside for a second. And there was an initiative, I think the initiative was 1202, that opened the door for the cannabis industry in Washington State. And I just happened to be down at the Washington State Convention Center when they had this big conference, and the people who were lined up around the block at the Washington State Convention Center, which is like 3 or 4 blocks, were predominantly white and male. And I'm inside the convention center, and I'm looking out through the window at the line, and I'm saying, these are the first cannabis licenses?
All these dudes be getting locked up for weed.
Right. Where are we? And I got on the phone, and I'm calling people. Now, I need to, do some, full disclosure here. I was always the guy that drove after the party. Okay. So guys that were getting high that I was running with made sure that I didn't do any drugs.
Yeah.
Because they would give, and sometimes it was their car. They'd give me the keys and say, J-Dub, you're driving, so no drinking, no weed.
Don't nobody give them none either.
Right. And so, but I was around it, and especially when they got in the car, all the contact, that was going on. So my point is, I know that the people who are on the front lines of being tried, convicted, and incarcerated in that industry were largely African American. And so I'm saying, I'm calling some of these same, road dogs of mine and saying, you need to get your butt down here. This is the license for what you've been doing for most of your life. Yeah. And they're like, oh man, no, I ain't into that. I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? I said, this is the beginning of a new billion-dollar industry. If we can't see it, we don't believe it. And they couldn't see it. I mean, some of them see it now. There's now a Washington State African American Cannabis Association. And I know the president and work with them to get funding in the legislature last year. But they are coming and creating an organization that's now saying, hey, more African Americans, let's get in. 1202 passed, I think, in 2012. It's 2022. It's not too late because there's like 37 other states that haven't done this yet. So in terms of America, we're still early in the industry. But my point is, whether it's affirmative action or cannabis or whatever industry emerges, we have to seize the moment. We have to be there. We have to be the first in line, the first through the door, so we can actually reap the benefits that have been won by people like myself.
Mr. Wineberry, I know you're very professional. Do me one favor. Look into that camera. Say, get up off your fucking ass. You don't curse.
Which camera?
Tell them, get off your ass. Yeah. You was over here fighting, jumping up, flying from D.C., coming out here to take care of us.
Yeah.
And that's why, remember the first thing I asked, so how does the numbers look that this has been reinstated? Put my book down.
No, if that's the camera and you're out there, you probably heard the last thing I talked about cannabis. It's not too late. They got training programs. They got financial assistance programs. They have several divisions of this industry. I know you probably thinking, oh yeah, I need a cannabis store. Okay, well compare that to what you would be making if you were a cannabis grower. Okay. There's one African American grower in Washington State. Okay, there's room for a few more. Not trying to create competition for my friends, the Hollingsworths, but there's more. There's enough. The pie is big enough for all of us. When it comes to affirmative action, so what? You don't want to be in the cannabis industry, but you want a job. Now's the time to begin applying for any government job because they have to hire you by law. Okay, that law was suspended for a good 24 years, but we brought it back. And so they must hire you. You qualified, you're going to get hired. If you don't get hired, you don't get qualified, go to WashingtonEquityNowAlliance.com, short word acronym is WENA, and let us know that you're capable, competent, qualified, and for some reason, they're not opening the door for you. And finally, how much you learn determines how much you earn. The doors are now open. Wide open for those of you who want to get a college education, whether it's community college, specialty college, professional college, or four-year college. The doors are now open. We've done our part, and now it's up to you.
Man, so basically, me and McGlover's going to be downtown, man, applying for the Seattle Police Department and everything like that. So the next 9 months, if you see me with a badge on, man, and my partner over here,
man.
You know what it is, man.
Rampart.
Yeah, and just to kind of coattail on that, one of the persons that I have known for most of my adult life, and actually some of my youth, is Bruce Harrell, who is the mayor of the city of Seattle. Bruce and I started in football with the same organization back in the day called the Central Area Youth Association. He went to Garfield. I went to Queen Anne. He's a middle linebacker, number 55. Played for the Huskies. Took him to the Rose Bowl. I'm a quarterback, so you kind of saw from the interview with the last middle linebacker that I had here that there's always a little rivalry between those two positions. But he is probably one of the most qualified mayors that the city has ever elected, because before that he served like 2 terms on the city council and was mayor, because there was a period where the mayor above him resigned and the council sent Bruce to be mayor. He was that strong. Yeah. And then he gave it back, okay? And then got out of politics. And then came everything that you remember from COVID and George Floyd, and everything fell apart. Well, that's when they called him and said, "Man, will you come back and take us across the finish line?" So when you talk about government jobs, if you Google Bruce, you'll see that when the governor signed our executive order into law, Bruce Harrell was one of the first people to go public saying, "I want the city of Seattle to be at the front of the line implementing this new law."
Well, let's hope, because Washington always seems to follow California's path. Let's just hope California follows Washington's path this time.
Thank you, man. We don't get props like you just gave us. You're right. The normal routine is California leads. But I'm gonna just tell on California, and I know I got Cali surrounding me here.
Nah,
but don't take my word for it. Google it. California put returning affirmative action on the ballot in 2020, November of 2020.
Cali needed,
and it failed.
Of course, it failed.
And we came, and I'm going to tell you, and those vibrations hit us politically, because the way most people think is, if California can't do it, Washington needs to forget about it. Y'all have no chance up here. if California, with all of the black and brown and red, I mean, more people of color, you produce Kamala Harris. She was what, Attorney General of the state of Washington. You know, I mean, Willie Brown was mayor.
Brown,
yeah,
we like
Willie
Willie.
Brown,
We
right.
like Willie.
We don't know about Kamala.
Right.
We just said these not his views.
Yeah, these is our views.
Right.
So, Mr.
But
Wine-
Willie Brown, I mean, and others, you know, Ron Dellums, you know, out of Oakland, you know, I mean, so when we see y'all in Cali, when it comes to something progressive that's going to help people of color, and you can't do it, a lot of people up here say, man, we need to forget about it. But our group said, hey, that's them, this is us, and let's take a page out of that book, see what they did right, see what they did wrong, and bring it into this state and get it done. And we did. Now we're getting calls from California, Michigan, and other states that killed affirmative action. How can we do what you did to bring it back?
They want to take the formula. They want to look at the formula, the recipe. Yeah,
and we that's what we did.
Yeah.
But you know, we looked at what worked and what didn't. And you know, in a lot of ways, politics is like sports. And so, if you see a team winning, then you want that playbook. If you see a team losing, you still want to check out that playbook to see what they did, you know, wrong, and then you make your adjustments and do it right in your game. And so that's what we did.
Well, you know, I'll be truthful. California's a very racist state. You know, it's very, very racist. Washington and Seattle's a culture melting pot. When I came to Washington, it was weird to see Hispanics, Caucasians, blacks, Cambodians, and Polynesians living on the same block. Unheard of.
Oh,
It's not
segregated communities.
Very
in California.
segregated community.
Okay.
It's like Chicago.
Yeah.
You go to Chicago.
yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey, you black as black.
Even Italians
White,
and
Italian.
Germans are
So-
separate. Yeah.
A lot of times when people think California is progressive, it's really not. And then
Well,
we
they-
have a lot of corruption. You know, a lot of you know, as they put the term politicians that, yeah, they're still running. They got some connections that they shouldn't even have. So coming here and seeing it, and just seeing, you know what I mean, the fourth movement, it's like, don't look to California. I mean, they went on social media in the Bay Area. You had an Asian woman tell you, hey, if you're not Asian or you're not Indian, we don't pretty much even want you in the Bay. We run the Bay now. We own your property, and we're ahead of your corporations. So I'm like I said, I'm watching the push. We're looking at San Francisco. San Francisco is horrible. How could this be considered one of the most richest cities in the world now and most expensive cities, and you got people just taking shits in front of your house? And excuse my French, but it's just the truth. And then, you know, the homeless are something atrocious out there right now. Not just, man, the Bay, L.A., it hasn't really hit San Diego, but San Diego's a very different kind of city to begin
that
with.
homelessness,
Anyway.
that's a whole nother monster, though, bro.
Well, I'm not even speaking in regards to the homeless. I'm speaking in regards to the haves, because the haves in California is what goes to the poll. It'll never reflect what the actual numbers are, because it just is what it is. And then the way that they break up the districts,
The influence.
the districts, and we got more Republicans than what people think. We're really a Republican state. You know, if you take out L.A., and pretty much kind of Oakland out the equation, San Francisco, pretty much everybody else is Republican.
And then there's the dinos. I don't know if you've heard of this term, DINO, Democrats in name only.
Oh, yeah.
So they run as Democrats, but once they get elected, they're voting with the Republicans.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's a veil. So it's like, you know, even with my first interaction out here with the police, you know, the police officer told me, hey, this ain't California. We don't treat our people like that. That was my first interaction with the police, because he can just tell the way that I just acted and was so forthcoming and was like, hey man, look, I don't want no problems. And he's like looking at me like, man, where the fuck are you from? Like, hey. And then that's when it really hit me, like, wow, we are really enslaved and don't have the real rights that other people have in different states and different places and different cities.
Right. Yeah, and that gets back to your question. You know, what is equity? Equity is is not just treating everybody the same. It's treating everybody with the resources that they actually need. And so if you give somebody a job who happens to be white, but he also, like I said, happens to have a foundation of resources underneath him, like maybe his parents also are college graduates, the parents, his grandparents are college graduates, so they've been building wealth over a long period of time. That's not equality when you give the black guy a job that does not have that.
Let me stop. Well, what if I'm the white guy and I say, well, hey, what they do doesn't affect me?
That's
you know, wait, but listen, I'm the white. You can't tell. You know, I'm the white guy.
Yeah, I did.
Hey,
I deal with white guys like that all the time.
What they do, they don't give me anything. I have everything I had to work for. I had to bust my ass, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
I love this. Here's what I've told them. And there's this thing, and you guys know I'm a lawyer, and there's this thing in law school called the Socratic Method, where you argue with someone not by saying you're wrong and I'm right. You ask them questions, and so it comes from Socrates. He used to teach in Greece by asking questions. So I ask him a question. I say, well, and you can be the white guy for a minute. Yeah. Your parents did you graduate from college, didn't you?
I dropped out.
You dropped out, but you got in, didn't you?
Yes.
So you had that chance.
I did.
Yeah. Did any of your parents go to college?
Yes.
When you put on your college college application, they always ask you, any of your parents go to college? What did you say?
I said yes.
Okay. So as soon as you got your application in, you used the people that you say didn't help you. You said
I was
that they
just
didn't help
being
you.
honest.
Well, but you just said you put your parents, you didn't put their name, but you let the people looking at you know that you were coming from a college-educated family. Did they ask you about race on that application?
Yes, they did.
And was Caucasian there for you to check?
Yes.
Did you check it?
Yes, sir.
Well, you didn't have to. Why'd you check it?
I was just following instructions.
Okay, so they saw did you check your gender also?
Yes, I did.
So did you say male?
Yes.
Okay, because these days it could have, you say.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay, so they saw a white male who comes from a family of college-educated people. You already were 75, if not 80%, in the door. All they needed to know is, do you have some grades you can give us? And if you were applying at a time when you took a test, we need your test scores. But in terms of all of the boxes that they check and they asked you to check to take advantage of your legacy, you checked it and got in. So it's okay to admit that, yes, my previous generation is a foundation that I had and that I still build on. And here's the ultimate.
So what do you want me to do?
No, here's the ultimate. Here's the ultimate. You said you dropped out.
I dropped out of college, yes.
You got a job now?
Yes.
So even when y'all fail,
You don't fail.
you fall forward.
But
okay?
we all have the same opportunities. My parents
I'm done
went to
playing
college.
the game because I'm over here cringing right now, man. Like,
my parents
man.
went to college, but we still struggle. And I understand you
you're
guys.
you're back to you now?
No, I understand you guys.
Oh, you're
and,
the white guy.
Yeah.
I've been, man, you know what? I got a lot of Caucasians. I got some Caucasians in my family. All right.
But that's cold to break down these.
No, they fuck ups. I'm just real talk. Felons, drug addicts, everything. Still making 100 and some thousand a year. And I be sitting back like, and I make the comments like as if like he knows who he is. He's a friend of the thing. I watched his asshole go for 2 felonies. I said, man, that must be nice, man. You don't do a day in jail.
Man, I
Shouts out to David Gerke. But 2 felonies, no time in jail. You didn't do no time in jail, and you still reap the benefits. But everything that he's got, or you're not going to say him, but a lot of times it's through connections. My family knows a friend. Hey, you want a job? Hey, I got a friend, and I'm just like I said, mouth dropped. Like, huh?
The complexion gives you the connection. The connection gives you the protection.
All time.
And that's still the case. So that's why when we say, or when the society says, we've given you equality, they really haven't. And so we take that off the table and say, okay, we our previous generations fought for equality. They didn't know. We now know that it's equity. And so we need this guy totally strapped with all of the resources that this guy has just because he was born a certain way. There's no one now, or very few people now, that will argue that there's not white privilege. There are very few people that will argue that there's not wealth privilege. And when you combine the two, it's privilege with rocket boosters. And so we're saying that's what we want. If there's white privilege, it needs to be countered with African American privilege, except the privilege that we're advocating for is documented, okay? You took from us literally billions of dollars while we built this country for free. And so now we're sending in our invoice to get paid. And once you do that, maybe we can say that equality has been achieved, but we got to wait and see.
You know, and this is going out to our viewers. Washington's a beautiful place. Seattle, the movement, King, I'd have to say it's a beautiful place. You know, it's really a great city. And hopefully, man, people will look towards the formula and the things that you're doing and what the city's doing and Mr. Bruce Harold and what he's doing. And we can be an example, man, for a lot of these, because you travel like I travel. These cities they terrible.
Once nice cities.
Nice cities just gone, man. Well, it's crazy
businesses is shutting down. This is all
the thing about it is the black wealth. Once the black wealth is pretty much gone, your city's gonna pretty much go for shit. Because in reality, a lot of times with minorities that make the money,
you say that because
they
blacks
send
are
the money out of
consumer?
country. They send the money. They just send the money out.
Yeah, especially if they are Somalian, Ethiopian, and from other parts of Africa. A lot of that capital is going. One of the things that I think we don't give enough power to and enough credit to, it's usually called education of previous generations, but I'm gonna step it up and put it on steroids. We are not telling our children. We're not giving them the roadmap. We're not giving them the GPS, if you will, like we have on our phones, of how to get from here to there economically. And one of the things that I was talking to the crew about before we started is that it dawned on us while we were, celebrating the signing of Governor Inslee's executive order, that this was done exactly 50 years from the moment that Governor Daniel Evans signed the rights into law in Washington State in 1972. 72 to 22 is 50 years. And so now we are actually preparing to launch a several-month campaign and educational series looking back to 1972, beginning with Governor Evans, who's now 95 years old, signing commemorative, re-signing a reenactment of what he did 50 years ago, and that's August 20th. And then we're going to keep going by educating people in the media, in museums, everywhere, in churches, organizations around the state, what Washington looked like when it comes to equity and equality 50 years ago, and how it has been brought forward. Because, see, a lot of people in my generation have lived through that. I'm over 50 years old, and it's not a big deal to them. But they don't understand that their children and their children's children know nothing about that. And we're ultimately going to be, going off to heaven or the other place at some point. And there needs to be not just a book. Though I give credit for Reginald Lewis putting his journey in a book so we can know it and build from it. But if we just put it in books and the books sit and collect dust in the library, the knowledge is not going to be passed on. It's got to be with music. It's got to be with video. It's got to be with culture and art. And now you're going to have people who weren't around from 72 to now, I mean, they got in obviously somewhere between 72 and now, who weren't back there then, who were looking and saying, oh, that's how they did that. Oh, that's why they did that. Oh, so now it's up to us to take it forward. And that's going to be done for the first time in 50 years because of what we did that happened to fall on the 50th year anniversary. And so I want you guys to be a part of that, because that's going to be teaching and reflecting, and not just back, but reflecting forward in terms of here's what you got to do to keep this moving. I'm a member, honorary member of the Jewish community. You know my name is Wineberry.
Of course.
And I was raised in the CD when it was a mixture. You talk about, the cultural mixture of neighborhoods up here. Back when I was a kid, it was the Jewish community and the black community. And so I've been to sessions where the adults in the Jewish community are ingraining in that younger generation everything going back to the Holocaust.
Exactly.
And bringing it forward. And almost, with rituals and celebrations that instill in that next generation, I'm handing the baton to you. Now you got to run with it. There needs to be a celebratory, symbolic gesture where we hand off the baton to the next generation. And in that baton is the knowledge and the legacy of where we've been and where we're going.
It's a great point you bring out. And it's crazy you say that, because I say that in our community, we don't celebrate our senior citizens or our historical events. We had a debate about this. We were saying, just run up on an average black person, ask them, what's the black national anthem? And you'll just see just the faces. It's just like, so.
I hope not.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
I hope not. Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Lift every voice?
Man,
they don't know that part?
They don't know, not a clue. But it's exactly what you just said. It's the culture that is missing.
Right, yeah, we don't, I don't like to talk about the subtractions, that dash. I like to talk about pluses where our community is concerned, but we got to acknowledge the dashes, and the minuses it kills us. That's minus history. That's minus legacy, and that's minus applying that history and legacy to the younger person's current lives and showing them the GPS of how to get from where they are to where they want to be. And we need to fill that void, and now's the time to do it.
I think I want to ask you something, man. How do you feel about Juneteenth becoming a holiday?
Man, hey, yeah, great question, because I sure was thinking about that. I wanted to ask you.
How do you feel, not just becoming a holiday, but behind the force in legislation that was pushed or maybe slid under somebody's door to get it pushed into being a holiday? How do you feel about that?
Okay.
If you don't want to answer, it's cool.
No, I knew, I didn't know this question was coming today, but I knew this question was going to come to me before I died. Okay, so number one, I need to put my resume out. I created a state holiday here in Washington State, the Martin Luther King State Holiday. You can Google it, House Bill 222. My first session in the legislature, because Dr. King was not being honored in Washington State, wasn't being honored anywhere. And there had been people before me, specifically State Senator George Fleming, who had introduced the legislation from the day King was killed. He was in the legislature. I was in the 8th grade, and he was dropping that bill. And here now, I'm a grown man coming into the legislature, and it still hadn't been done. He hands it off to me. And because I came in with Reverend Jessie Jackson, before Black Lives Matter.
On fire. You came in on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, don't take my word for it. Yeah, Google it. And so I said, Senator, this is your fight. I'm here for economic justice. This is your. He said, no. He said, with what you're doing and what you're talking about, and they're listening to your generation, get it done. And so we passed the law creating the Martin Luther King holiday. So I know about how tough it is to create holidays. I really credit Representative Melanie Morgan, the sister from Pierce County, who introduced the legislation creating Juneteenth state holiday. And I credit all of the people, African American descent and others around the country who worked to create that holiday. All I got to say is we need to keep going because there are several other holidays that need to be celebrated that connect with Juneteenth. Because if we don't continue to move those other historic days forward, an entire generation will think that slavery ended on Juneteenth. Those of you who know the real history know that Juneteenth is the day that brothers and sisters in Texas celebrated because of the 13 rebellion states that were, they had created their own country. A lot of people don't know America was not in existence during the Civil War. The 13 states had gone off and created the continental United States with their own constitution, their own president, their own Congress, their own money, their own currency. And so Texas was a part of that. And so when Lincoln sent out the Emancipation Proclamation, he didn't say all slavery was over. He said, if you are a slave in any of these states that are fighting me, I free you to come fight for me, right? So we can win, okay? And so the folks in Texas, the government in Texas, they were rebelling against Lincoln. So when he sent that out, they said, don't tell the slaves. If they don't know, they're going to keep working. Mm-hmm. If they know, they may try to, flee Texas and join up with the Union. And so they didn't tell him. But then but enough slaves got involved in the Civil War to win the Civil War for the United States anyway. And so after the Civil War was over, they send in the Victory Army to Texas to say, what are these people doing still out here in the you paying them? No. You ain't told them? No. Well, you going to tell them now. Otherwise, you're going to be at the end of a gunshot. And so they told him. That's what Juneteenth is, that we were notified that, not we, the brothers and sisters in Texas were notified late that the rebellion state of Texas was supposed to send their slaves to fight. That's all it was. It wasn't slavery is over. So that didn't occur. Bear with me one more second. Mm-hmm. That didn't occur till the 13th Amendment. And nobody's celebrating the 13th Amendment. That's what was passed and signed that actually ended slavery, unless you are convicted of a crime and incarcerated.
That's a whole nother. That's a whole nother show, right there.
Right. All right. So
yeah, we got to go ahead and wrap it, man. You know what I mean? Hey, I love the time we get with Assemblyman. You know what I'm saying, man? Jessie Wineberry, aka J Dub. Yeah, and I heard it. I heard it like, oh, J Dub.
J Dub.
Nah. I mean, we would love to, man. We love to have you on here. Hopefully, man, in the future we can just fly you out ourselves.
No, always ready. You're doing phenomenal, unprecedented things, and I want to do everything within my network to help you grow. I mean, I see one day a SoDo Studios, that everybody will be lining up to pay to come in, do their podcasts, do their interviews, and so forth, where y'all will have lines going outside, getting here to get in time for their studio time.
I'll take the blessings.
Yeah,
man.
so I see the future and the potential, and want to help you get there as quickly as possible.
Mr. Wineberry, if anybody wanted to reach out and find you or try to contact you or find out about the Washington Equity Program, can you kind of tell them where they can find you at?
Yeah, many of you have gone to our website, but for those of you who have not heard about us, it's the Washington Equity Now Alliance, WENA, W-E-N-A, and just Google either Washington Equity Now or WENA online. You'll find yourself at our website. You will see Governor Inslee there front and center, signing the executive order.
Somebody handed him that pen.
Yeah. And we were the ones who made sure he got the pen. And so that's what has unleashed an unlimited array of opportunities for all of us in Washington State. And our contact information is there. And as I explained here on the show, It's no longer just a temporary campaign. We're now a permanent organization ready to fight for equity 24/7 in Washington State.
That's right.
Man, off top, man. Of course, man, Mr. McGlover's back with me.
Back in effect. Back.
He came off his cruise, man. I was tired of seeing his videos of him walking around with no shoes on.
Where were you?
Man, we went down. I caught it down in what's that? San Pedro. Went down there to Mexico for a couple 3 days. You know what I'm saying? Came on back.
All he did was eat.
All I did was, yeah. All I did was eat. Allegedly.
Also, can I do a plug for Mr.
Please,
Lewis?
Please.
This is, I don't know what camera I should be pointing to. Okay. So this is the book that has inspired many of our lives, especially mine. It's by Reginald Lewis, and the title is Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? As you can see, he just came off a cruise, so he believes, why should white guys have all the fun? And,
Facts.
And so this is about one of America's greatest entrepreneurs that came from being black, broke, a brother in Baltimore, and ended up making billions feeding the world. I have been blessed to be one of the producers of the upcoming movie starring Jamie Foxx and released by Lionsgate, not this year, but next year, so that you will see this story unfold in film. But in the meantime, get the book. It's your GPS to achieving the American dream. And again, the title is a real title. Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And this is Mr. Banks' autographed copy.
Off top, man.
That's big.
Blessing, man. That's why I told McGlover, don't touch my book. Stay away from my book, because I think I'm missing a book right now, man, or whatever, man. But again, man, Mr. Wineberry, always a pleasure, man.
No,
Thank
man,
you.
it's mine.
Man,
Thank
for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. You don't even know. The
Likewise.
information, man. Hey, and I'm going to say this. All my younger viewers out there, go talk to your uncles. Go talk to your grandfathers, man.
Yep.
Go get that knowledge, man. Turn it into wisdom. Make it understanding. Because that's what we're doing. We're sitting here picking Mr. Wineberry's brain for you guys, so you guys can figure out and find out, man. But yeah, that Juneteenth thing, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, we could have went in for a long time
today, because I'm not a fan.
I had to tell the truth.
No, I know the truth. That's why I'm not a fan.
So let's keep it going, because if we just leave it there, a whole lot of generations are going to think, slavery ended. Shoot. Slavery's still going on.
Basically, go do your research. Go do your history. Did you know it was Six Flags that was over Texas? They'll give you some more understanding to that Juneteenth and them coming in. The understanding of that, man, because I hate Juneteenth.
Oh, I can't
slap
say
in
that.
the face.
How
No,
would
I
you
just
feel
take it
if
as
a
a
white
slap in the
person
face.
said Happy Juneteenth to you?
Say what?
How would you feel like a Caucasian person?
So, yeah, we
You
gonna
know,
go
it's
to
a
the show.
holiday,
McGlover-
right?
McGlover will give you some of the craziest questions, man. We had to spot on the spot.
He like, say what?